consuming on a day-to-day basis. We here, we alive. It's a blessing. And you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So shout out to everybody. Uh right now we're not gonna do no intro and stuff like that. I'm already running late on the low. So let's just jump right in. Moon and Virgo, Sun and Cancer. So you know, a lot of the energy going on. I mean, even though the way I'm moving and stuff, like a little upbeat, a little, you know, somewhat on one end nerve-wracking, but at the other end, you know, that Virgo energy, you know, because kind of like that nerves, that Mercury energy, that's ready to get up and get shit going. This energy trying in that Mars energy. Mars is in Taurus. It's a Mars day. This is really powerful energy for correcting things, getting things in order, you know what I'm saying, making stuff make sense. A lot of what we've been dealing with the last couple of days has been highly emotional, sensitive energy. Now is actually a time where we can take everything that we've been expressing and what we've been analyzing to start as far as our internal natures. We can start to make sense out of these things. We can start to organize these things and finally, you know, create somewhat of a plan to continue to maintain what's going on an internal level, you know what I'm saying? So like I was saying, with the Sun in Cancer, of course, in the third decan now, or moving into the third decan, we are about to start to expand on this new emotional state. So these new feelings that we've been trying to manage, this is where we have an opportunity between the Sun and Cancer and the Moon and Virgo to now start, like I was saying before, make sense out of these things. The Moon can make you nervous. So if you haven't been taking care of yourself, if you haven't been actually paying attention to the subtle emotional changes that you've been going through, this might be a little bit of again, that anxiety can heighten. So how do we manage anxiety at a time like this? The best way to go about it is really, so you understand, Cancer is cardinal and the Virgo is mutable. So when it comes to Virgo, now that we have the ability to kind of go and be adaptable and changeable to our emotional response to the practical things going on, the small details, again, we can start to take that initiating energy and start to really address a lot of these things on an emotional side of, okay, this emotion leads to this state of being, which leads to this action. If this action isn't contributing to me creating stability in my life, if it's not actually adding to me getting to a place where I can say I'm stable, then maybe this is not the right emotional state to deal with. And Virgo comes in and actually allows us enough of that space between our emotions and our ability to be practical. Because like anytime you're dealing with an Earth Moon transit, or if you have Earth Moon in your chart, that's actually what part of what comes with that energy is the ability to separate somewhat of your emotional reaction to something you can actually practically do with that emotional response. So it's not like you just swimming in emotions and you just stay there forever. That Earth energy will inspire you, or on some level encourage you to put use to whatever you're feeling. So that emotion don't have to be you just in a crazy vibration and then take you over. It can actually be used to construct a better way of thinking or dealing with a certain situation. So this is why, again, the Earth signs in your life, mostly the Earth moons in your life, they might not want to sit there and listen to you complain. You might feel like they're not listening to you. You might feel like they don't understand you. And it's not so much always that. Like sometimes as an Earth Moon, you do have to kind of be a little more emotionally receptive and understanding, and kind of hold your 2 cents in a little bit. But a lot of what these energies represent, like these people in our life, a lot of times on a high octave, these people can contribute to actually helping us get out of an emotional hole or in an emotional rut. So, you know, for a water sign themselves, they might want to sit there in a certain emotion and soak in it and, you know, be felt and connected to. But at some point, that water energy, you going to get up out of that feeling, and you're gonna have to decide to do something. Are you going to actually do something about what you complaining about, or are you just going to sit there and continue to do nothing and be lost into whatever emotion it is? It's like, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and cry, but come on, it's been like a day now, it's been like a couple hours now, it's been, you know, a little too long, and I don't see no progress being made. That's where the Earth Moons come in. And it's like, yo, let's kick it up, let's just change it up. Because if we don't, we you know, and Earth Moons look at it, they understand, they like, if we sit in this emotion for too long, again, I'm gonna feel even worse, because I'm not gonna be productive. Earth Moons want to use emotion a lot of time, and sometimes you can't always do that. Sometimes you have to sit in the feeling and decipher what it is. But you know, and that's more so in the natal chart. Now in when we're dealing with transits though, these be opportunities as far as like the time we in to actually put some practical use and ideas behind what we feel, so that our feelings don't have to dictate who we are. They don't have to dictate our circumstances for more than what's necessary. Emotions are, most related to the past. Earth deals with the present. So when you have these two combining, the whole purpose of the way they get along, the best way within yourself, is by taking the past and using it to create context. But you don't live there, you in the present. So with that context you have of the past and old things and how it made you feel, now in the present we can do something different than what we did before that led to that. And this is kind of what that sextile between Cancer and Virgo is able to do. We can actually properly assess the emotions that we've been going through and what we've been trying to express and get off our chest. And now we can actually say, okay, wait a minute, let's slow it down. What can I practically do to adjust my outcome moving forward? And again, the whole theme of this little period of time has been paying close attention to old habits, old patterns, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Old things that we have to look at and say, okay, wait, hold on. If I pay attention to these things and I adjust these things like my old habits and old patterns, I can get myself to a better space entirely on a physical level, and I could probably start to regulate my emotions better. So the biggest thing we have to keep in mind right now, so we have a lot of helpful energies in the sky at the moment. So part of what's helping us, right, the moon in Virgo. I mentioned earlier, we got a trine with Mars and Taurus. So Mars and Taurus conjuncting Uranus. So that moon in Virgo, trining Mars and Uranus conjunct, this is the gift to be able to, again, adjust our emotional state to be more honed in on what we can fix and what we can start to put together and construct as a practical way to get from point A to point B. You already know it's gas. I don't do black and miles and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to, you know what I'm saying? I see you new. I see you just hopped in. But for the most part, all this practical energy, this is to get a grip on what we might need to do, how we can strategize to actually get from point A to point B. And a lot of that Mars energy conjuncting Uranus is all about change. So directing your passion, your, what could potentially be frustration, anger, and aggression towards actual change, rebellion against what hasn't been creating stability in your life, rebellion against what hasn't been perpetuating security and things, having things together on a practical level, even organization to a point. It's like, you have to change. And then with the Pluto energy going back into Capricorn, I don't know if it's in there yet, it's not creating a grand trine or anything, but you can start to understand the nature of what needs to transform. And the moon is giving you the emotional backing to actually support your change if you're in that right mindset, if you got the right perspective on things. Because if your perspective is still wanting to be in your comfort zone, still wanting to cling to those things that in your life that's playing out as negative patterns or just bad habits. And the thing about habits and stuff like that, what determines if it's a bad habit or not, it's really all down to the time you spend on it compared to the time you spend in the things that you actually like to do. Because the underlying theme right now with Saturn retrograde is, like I was saying before, addictions and patterns, but it's really more so about escapism and what we do to escape rather than actually put in work and focus to create the reality we want, that we don't want to escape from. So when you're looking at the current things you're dealing with at the moment, you can look at where you're not at, like where you say, oh, I got this goal, I want to be in this position. You can look at yourself and say, damn, the reason I'm not there yet is because I keep trying to escape when there's very real things in my actual reality I have to address and deal with in order to get into a better space. You know what I'm saying? So many times we jump to these things that give us that dopamine rush to keep us in an emotional state that's satisfied, but we know that we actually not satisfied on the surface. We not satisfied with what's actually going on. But these other things that we jump into always it's like forms of lying to yourself. And that's really what that like we was talking about in the last live, like when we talk about delusion and what it really is and why even the Pisces energies deal with that. It's like it takes you to a space where it tricks you into thinking that everything is all right, everything is all smooth. But once that high runs out, once that dopamine level is back at the base, and it's time to now do those things that you got to do regardless of how you feel, now you kind of looking for that crutch again. And then that time you spend looking for that crutch and then being lost in that crutch, that be the time you wasted or just spent poorly. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't time well spent. It was time spent, again, perpetuating a cycle, doing the same thing that ain't actually getting you from point to B. Shout out to McCoby. What's up? What's up? You know what I'm saying? So, getting back into it. So, Moon and Virgo, this is a very powerful energy. This energy can really set us up to start to commit to those changes that we need to make. Like I was saying, the Moon in Virgo is giving emotional backing, or has the gift to give emotional backing to where Mars and Uranus at. And those are key points as far as helping us actually commit and execute the transformation that we need to make, the changes that we need to make, the things that we know that are very real holding us back. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing about earth energies in our life, where you have earth signs in your chart, a lot of these be the realistic points in your life. These be the very real houses of your life. Like all the other houses, you're not going to take it seriously, or you should be taking the earth houses more seriously. Like everything you should be taking seriously, of course. But when it comes to these earth houses, these be pivotal points in the actual structure of our life, right? How you live and whether or not it's sustainable can a lot of times be determined by what's in these earth houses. And depending on what houses you have, you need to make sure you're doing actual real things in these houses to keep them up and running. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself slipping from reality in these different houses. So if you got earth in the first, let's say you got it in the first, first, fifth, and ninth, you know, your actual personal, your personality, your spiritual system, and your creativity, all these things need to have very active and realistic participation in them in order for you to actually sustain yourself in this world. Whether that actually looks like you having some creative gift, and again, even if it's just a hobby that you into, if you got a earth fifth house, you still need to make that hobby very much real. It doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I got to make a fortune out of this, or I need this to be my main source of income. But again, it could be as simple as having an emotional or creative release for the things that you involved in. That creative release is what helps you actually get your ass to work. That creative release be the reason you actually can deal with some of the more dramatic aspects of your life and whatever is going on, and you never know. You know, and not to say, and again, if you don't have earth in the fifth house, that don't mean, again, you don't have any extra access to make something real out of your creativity. It just means how you prioritize your life got to be different. If you got earth energies in the second, the 6th, and the 10th, then these are the earth houses, you know, the 2nd house, the 6th house, and the 10th house. So if you got earth in those signs, it's even more of a reason to know, oh, I need to operate, make sure I'm doing what I need to do in these to keep my life running smoothly, to keep my life sustainable. Shout out to Rare Vision. If you got earth in the 3rd, 7th, and 11th, that means, oh, I need to be very realistic and actually put physical action and focus into my connections, my relationships, forms of communicating, and the things in my life in order for me to be sustained, you know, in order for my life to sustain itself. And then last but not least, the 4th, if you got earth in the water houses, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th, that means you need to be very realistic and grounded when it comes to your emotional states, and making sure you're doing what's necessary to create those boundaries to not get too wrapped up into any emotion. You know, doesn't mean you can't be emotional. It doesn't mean hide from your emotions or run from them. It actually means embrace them. Be present with what you feel. And if you're present with what you feel, you'll have a much more sustainable lifestyle. You'll be able to manage some of the waves that we get hit with regardless of what we're doing. That's the point of the natal chart. The natal chart is to give you a frame of reference so that, yeah, we got to match the vibrations of what's going on each day, right? We have to ride the wave. But if you don't have a sufficient boat, if that boat you built, aka your mentality, isn't solid, it got a bunch of holes in it, what's going to happen? Man, I don't know what they got going on, but you know, when it comes to, like I was saying, shout out to Elhim, that's what it comes down to. You know, understanding your natal chart and understanding the purpose of it. The purpose is they trying to set me up. They got some weird, and it's trying to act like it's loading up. Are we still in here? Y'all still, we smooth now? How's it going? It's trying to go in and out on me. I don't know. But we gonna keep focused. So that's the whole point with that mentality. We have to make sure that that's the whole point of the natal chart, understanding what role it plays, not to get lost into our own desires, not to use it as an excuse to keep going in the wrong direction. Because that's the thing with our natal chart. If we're using the analogy as the means to construct a mentality to help us travel in this experience, right? Because we're spiritual beings using a human vessel to travel, to interact, to engage, expand, and contract in a sense. So again, your natal chart, using it, that just because you got a moon in just because you got a moon in Leo don't mean you got to be self-absorbed. That could still mean you're not driving your boat in the right direction. So that's why we still have to have self-reflection, enough self-accountability to adjust ourselves in the relationships we make. You know what I'm saying? The relationships we establish with other individuals. These be the things that help us see different sides of ourselves that we can't see alone. That ego is a prison. Actually, nah. Ego is what helps you express yourself and helps you see. It can be a prison, but the thing about it is, we need the ego in order to have a sense of self represented. In a lot of ways, the ego is how we get ourselves, how we get out of ourselves, and how we relate ourselves to others. Without an ego, you would be in a prison. You would be only in your own world, and you wouldn't have no form of a light form to show others what it is that came from inside. So you wouldn't have no form or ability to communicate for real if you didn't have an ego. You know, people who teach, oh, you got to kill the ego and stuff like that, you know, that's not how you actually gonna get any real that's not how you gonna get any real. He said going in and out. Okay, is it stabilized now? That shit tripping, man. That's crazy. I got all the bars, but it's, he said they can't tell the truth because why do everything to look good? He said, but changing is difficult because the ego fights back. Right. It's like we got to understand, even when it comes to ego, ego is just a tool. When people get lost in ego, all they can see is themselves. So they're not actually learning and responding to the things that they're pushing out and what's getting received back to them. They're just kind of pushing out. And if you get lost in that ego, it's like getting lost in that light. You can only see things one way. And we know that that is what leads to destruction, because that's an inability to want to change. You know, the ego comes from that Leo energy. It makes you fixed in how you see and feel, which is powerful in expressing yourself. But when it comes to actually learning, expanding, and growing, then it doesn't actually go anywhere. You said people are controlled by ego. They can't be themselves. You know, ego, how you want to be seen. You know, ego, it's like ego is how you want to be seen in a sense. So you can't let it control you, you know what I'm saying? But it's something that we still have to use as a tool in order to get our point across, in order to be, to represent who we are, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. Shout out to Stephanie. So when it comes to, because like ego is like having a sun sign, you know what I'm saying? He said ego equals the program. You know, in a sense, like, to be honest, when it comes to ego, understanding what the ego really is, it's like I said before, it's how you see yourself and how you want to be seen. It's a desire, right? That is useful though, because how you want to be seen as a spirit, right? You came in here and you're like, when you came in this body, you had an idea of what you wanted to represent and what you wanted to express. So you got to use that to some degree to get that across. But as you do that, you receive different reactions from people, like people getting hit with your ego. But you have to have enough separation, right? Not embody the ego, not think you are the ego, in order to be able to receive new information and adjust and change and grow as an individual. So, you know what I'm saying? That's how it be, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Y'all on point. Shout out to all y'all in the chat. Shout out to Free. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to, what we're doing right now in this particular transition of, that we're going through, the ego is going to look like doing, cancer like things. That's where the energy is, where we have to express what we feel. And what we're receiving and the world we're in is Virgo. So that's what we got to take care of at the moment. The practical things in our life, the many different forms, and kind of being more mutable, adaptable, and changeable. When it comes to Virgo, it's about adjustment. It's about fixing things. It's about paying attention to reality and responding to reality in a way where we can, like I said before, adjust, fix, analyze, and criticize what's not working. So this is a space where, when it comes to the moon, we can use the energy in a positive way to start to criticize some of these emotional states that we still been in. And again, like I said before, kind of paying attention to, if this emotional state leads to this action, and this action isn't in the direction I want to go in, we need to fix the emotional state. We need to fix and adjust what we're responding to in the first place, what we're trying to react to in the first place, or how we go about reacting to it. So we all need to take care of that part. And again, that's going to make you nervous. It can increase nervousness if you haven't been paying attention to how you feel, and if you haven't been expressing that thing. You know what I'm saying? He said they can't say what they feel because of ego fear. They lie to be loved and accepted. I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. They can't. Yeah, right. Because too much ego is not enough vulnerability. So too much ego, exactly that. You're lying because you want to be seen a certain way. So that's when ego does become toxic, and where, you can't trust that so much. Again, ego is what makes you lash out when somebody tell you the truth about something, about how they see you, or, and if it doesn't align with how you see yourself, then all of a sudden it's like, fuck you, fuck everybody. And that starts to be that whole defensive energy, and, you trying to defend something, when vulnerability and the ability to self-assess and self-reflect, that starts to be, a step towards closeness. Because if you could be honest with yourself, that is the key to being vulnerable, and being honest with yourself and being able to kind of withstand the process between, oh, my vulnerability and being open. Because that's the thing, ego is important if we around people that we not trying to be vulnerable with. You know what I'm saying? If you out in the world and you engage in certain things, let's say you at work and stuff like that, it might not actually be useful to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? You at work, you already in a program. It's like high key spiritual warfare going around. But when you go home to your family and the people that you're supposed to be close to, you got to be vulnerable. And so sometimes it's hard to make that switch. You know what I'm saying? And even how McCoby was saying, ego being a program, it's like, yeah, ego could be like, you can use ego as a shell to help you get through certain experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like, if like I was saying with the analogy of going to work and shit like that, if you about to be around a bunch of people who not really on a spiritual path, and maybe people who are maybe not necessarily against you, but people who are gonna be, kind of, they're gonna be in their own world, that's some form of a protection. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to be so vulnerable and have your heart all open to be attacked and things like that, because then that could be draining on your spirit, and that could lead you to kind of have to deal with a bunch of things you don't have to. Shout out to Sunshine. He said, honestly, that's what healthy release systems are for, right? He said, I don't have no one around me to be vulnerable with but the microphone, to be honest, right? And see, through that microphone, you connect to people in ways that you don't have to be right there in front of you. Because when people hear your music, and if you're speaking from the heart, that's why everybody on the low wants to be a musician, because we know that's the way we get our, that's a healthy way to get that vulnerability out. Any form of creative, like, medium, even if you paint, a lot of times painting is a form of vulnerable communication. That's what makes things so difficult when people find themselves, like, for instance, you want to be a musician, you trying to get into the music business, but music is your emotional release too. So as an artist, this is why, like, I like to kind of like talk through and consult artists about how to go about a career in music, because, like, for that very reason. See, a lot of artists start music trying to you know, like music is something they love and something, it's something that they put their heart and soul into, but then they try to get involved in the music business. Those are two different ways of thinking about the music. You can blend them, but there's a way you got to blend them so that, again, when you get into a certain space where you're trying to make the hit song, but you also trying to be honest and vulnerable, if you don't have a good balance of the two, you can lean on one end or the other, where maybe your music is too specific, too personal, to the point where it really can't go nowhere as far as mainstream goes if you're trying to make it a career. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, if you are a person who takes your music more serious and is more personal, you might want to consider other ways of creating stability. Because if you're not ready to get into the business side of things and consider what's actually marketable and what can be sold, then you're not going to actually get into the spaces in which you know, that music can travel on a practical level and connect to people and do what it does in the music business side of things. You know what I'm saying? It's still gonna connect and travel because it's authentic, and that's really the key. But it's a way you got to go about it that creates that balance. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that made sense. I'm like pressed for time. I wish I was able to go earlier so I could really take the time to answer y'all questions and stuff, because these are a lot of good topics that we're talking about. We said keep letting God, the divine spirit, use you know what I'm saying? You said keep using the design, keep using God, the divine spirit, use you, bro. These video lives are hella helpful to me, and I know so many other people. Much thanks. The music's fire too. You got my full support. Shout out to Greg Kennedy. Appreciate you, bro. Real shit. You said backseat style, baby. You can ride my car. Oh yeah. Wow. He said chill. He said, his girl is literally in the chat. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think she's saying anything. Yeah. I don't know if she talking to me specifically. But anyway. But anyway. Anyway, keeping going, you know what I'm saying, back with the energies, keeping going back with the energies, you know what I'm saying, Moon and Virgo, for the most part, constructing things and trying to make sense out of what we doing, you know what I'm saying, trying to make sense of what we feeling. That's really what it is. You know, we have to understand and address these internal natures, and we have the support to do it with more practicality, you know what I'm saying, to make more sense out of what's going on and continue to build ourselves, you know what I'm saying. He said I have French. Okay, so when, you know what I'm saying, I don't know what's going on in chat, but for the most part, staying back focused. So with the Moon in Virgo, like I was saying, it's got that trine with Mars and Uranus. So we have the support, the emotional backing to the changes we know we need to make. And the whole thing is, how do we, you know, that Virgo energy is the sextile, right? So it's creating an opportunity when it comes to the sensitive natures of Cancer to actually have a little bit more focus and intention on a practical end, being able to kind of not be so sensitive, not too sensitive to the point where you can't make the changes. You know what I'm saying? That sensitivity sometimes, like I was saying before, we can't let what we feel keep us from actually doing what we got to do. And this is one of those times in which we can actually, okay, add some practicality, add some earth energy to create that separation enough to say, okay, you know, even though I might not feel like changing this, if you can make it make sense in your mind as to why it needs to be changed, that can add a little bit more motivation to be like, okay, yeah, this is why I'm doing all this. You know, in a lot of ways, the moon being opposite to Saturn in Pisces and retrograde, this is another way we actually can create balance, right? Because what's happening is, emotionally, Moon and Virgo, we are uncomfortable with reality, and we're able to come to the full realization of that. You know what I'm saying? We're able to come to the realization that, hey, I'm uncomfortable with my reality. So what is it that I need to address within myself to actually get the results I'm looking for? You know what I'm saying? And in that space, this is where you create that balance, because now Virgo can start to look at, okay, opposite that Saturn and Pisces, looking at the reality of things, basically all I've been saying before, which is like, okay, let's start to incorporate and adjust and fix what I'm still reacting and responding to that's creating nervousness. Because one thing about the nervousness that Virgo does present, Virgo is very good at showing you what needs attention. It's right next to Leo. So when the moon is in Virgo, if you are being triggered, because it's going to make you a little nervous and a little, you know what I'm saying, a little like curious about what's going on around you. When you start to feel those vibrations of something making you nervous and something trying to pull you towards paying attention to it, listen to that feeling. Because what it's doing is, and see, what'll happen is a lot of time with that Virgo energy, you might want to run away from it, right? You might want to run away from it and not address it. You might want to just go back to the escapism side. You can't just succumb to the escapism at this point. It's like that moon in Virgo is really pointing you to the direction of what you need to address. Like, hey, that right there, you know what I'm saying? That right there, let me get to it, you know what I'm saying? Let me do that right there. And again, it's going to come in the form of something making you feel anxious, something making you feel extremely nervous and like, you know, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle this. But it's like you have that choice. You have the choice to actually stand up and say, no, I'm going to take accountability. If I feel nervous about this, 9 times out of 10, it's because it's something I'm not addressing. It's something I'm not actually taking proper care of in my life. And if you grow up and you able, and shout out to Stephanie, said we need to grow up in spirit, do spirit things, not ego things. You know what I'm saying? And that's like on the subconscious level. Like when it comes to the subconscious process that we're going through, that is where the growth is. You know what I'm saying? Seeing where, okay, I'm still running away from something, and it's creating that anxiety in my life. It's creating that energy that builds up when you know you procrastinating. You know what I'm saying? When you know you got something you need to address and you keep running away from it, that's just building up more anxiety. But again, that escapism will trick you into thinking, hey, everything is all good. We can stay in la la land. We don't have to actually do work. We don't have to actually address anything. But the longer you stay in that space, when you come back down to earth and that high runs out, that dopamine runs out, boom, you're on the ground. And now again, you get piled in with even more of those energies because you know you spent all this time in the wrong space. And this is how we get into those perpetual cycles. So this moon in Virgo, like I was saying before, use the emotional response that might be making you nervous and anxious about certain things to actually say, oh, this is the reason my life is the way it's situated. This is the reason why I'm not stable in this area. This is why I need to take more time and pay attention to what's got me all emotionally aroused and stuff like that. Now, the moon in Virgo is making an inconjunction to Chiron. So we need to do a little digging in order to figure out what the actual problem is. He said, so grow through it. He said, so go through it. Yeah, basically face it. You know what I'm saying? Because the whole thing with Saturn and Pisces retrograde, the reason it's bringing up all these different things is to show you forms in which you play out escapism. So escapism will look like you jumping into certain, like basically anything physical that distracts you from either a subconscious response. Like when we think about shadow work, for instance, what is shadow work? Shadow work is us on a subconscious level facing the different parts of ourselves that keep us distracted. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about ego does come from forms of like ego is toxic when it starts to be encouraged by fear. Like if you make actions out of fear, because that's not truly you. You know what I'm saying? The reason why ego is associated with negative shit is because the ego at a certain point can become more so of how you want to be seen versus who you really are. If you're hiding behind an ego, you're using that ego in an abusive way. You're abusing it. You're using it to represent yourself, you know what I'm saying, in a certain way that's not true to you. And sometimes if you're hiding behind ego, what's going on internally is you're not actually being what you want to see. On an emotional level, you aren't actually doing the shadow work to be on an emotional level that's consistent with what you're trying to put out into the world. You know what I'm saying? That's like the actual work that you got to do. So that's the issue. So when it comes to this point in time right now, it is about going through it. It's really about facing yourself and facing the aspects in which you run away from who you really are to go cling to what you want to be seen as. And again, what you want to be seen as, that be a lot of times the reason people are addicted in the first place to certain things and substances. Like how people be like, oh, I like to drink when I go out because it makes me more social. It's like, instead of going through the vulnerability and the uncomfortability of just being yourself and going through that resistance of being in a social setting and actually finding the people. And it's really not like going out and finding and chasing, but if you go out and you are who you are, you're gonna attract the people who are meant to be social with you. And you're gonna have to go through that uncomfortability and learn how to trust yourself being social. You know what I'm saying? Without the crutch. But a lot of people keep on going to the crutch and don't develop or do the actual inner work it takes to be on an internal level who they are trying to represent themselves as on an external level, if that makes sense. So in the context of this energy with the moon in Virgo at the current moment and the Saturn retrograde in Pisces, Saturn retrograde in Pisces is about reality, how we deal with reality and what's real in our life and what we're trying to construct as something that could potentially be a status or something we can stand on and say, hey, I am stable. This is what I've built. Now, the moon in Virgo is giving everybody that opportunity to create balance in the way of saying, hey, the things that's keep making me feel insecure or keep making me feel as if I need to escape. Now you can use that moon in Virgo to kind of sober up and be like, wait a minute. The reason I keep feeling like I need to escape is because I'm not actually addressing the root of the issue. I'm just running to something that can mask the issue for a certain amount of time to get me to one point to another. He said, just know Sunshine Williams, Pig Games on my limit. You are welcome to my world. Get out now. Sorry, Dave. I had to make something clear. The stakes are too high now. Yeah, y'all got to be cool in the chat, though. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what all that was about. But, yeah. So, for the most part, let's just continue to be respectful and stuff like that in the chat. You know what I'm saying? But, I know how it be, though. When we typing and stuff, there'd be things that's misunderstood, miscommunicated. Let's just clear it, keep on moving. But for the most part, when it comes to the moon in Virgo, that's really the thing. So yes, very much go through it, but how you're going through it is really just facing paying attention to the ways in which we try to escape the work that we need to do. You know what I'm saying? He said, hi bro, Jupiter retrograde and Scorpio, good or bad? It depends on you. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, somebody else said something too. You said Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Scorpio. Okay, cool. So when it comes to the energy going on right now, so we also have the moon in Virgo squaring Jupiter and Gemini. So when it comes to that squaring, right, you're learning how to analyze your experiences and incorporate better ways to go about them. Like Jupiter and Gemini square, it's like you're learning through your experiences and forms of communicating. The thing about Jupiter and Gemini that I keep saying is being willing to have things open for debate. Speak your mind and be willing to listen to where your perception of reality or perception of your experience might need to be adjusted. You know what I'm saying? So being open to that new information. The moon in Virgo, again, is feeding you better practical ways of dealing with your emotional state, right? That you can now start to use to make those changes in your life. So, that's kind of one of the things, because they both share Mercury, even though they square and they create some forms of frustration. And the frustration could come from just you simply being comfortable with reality. Again, certain things you already know are making you anxious in certain areas, right? You square that, but the Jupiter is saying, hey, be open to new information so you can continue to adjust and change as necessary to get from point A to point B. Because again, this part of our journey in particular is us trying to create on this new fertile land. You know what I'm saying? The new moon was a flood, wiping everything out. Now it's like, okay, with this open space, what thoughts and feelings, mentalities do I now plant as new seeds and new growth in the summertime? And what do I need to pay attention to? Where do I need to direct my energy in order to get the most out of what it is I'm trying to grow at the current moment in time? Now, the moon is also sextiling Venus. So opportunities for you to have better practical ways of dealing with your what you love, appreciate, and value. You know what I'm saying? This is learning kind of, and Virgo and Cancer is like, Virgo is patient and practical enough to learn what makes sense to make that moon comfortable. I mean, to make that Cancer energy comfortable. So it's like, but even though the Virgo energy is on the moon, so it's like we are almost anxious to make ourselves more comfortable in a sense. So if you will understand, even the moon motivating the sun, right? In a sense, the moon is encouraging the sun to change how it feels in order to soothe the nervousness that's coming from the moon in Virgo. So it's like the moon in Virgo is creating this nervousness. It's like, man, this is just something I know need to change. But the moon in Virgo actually can, you know, this sextile is like an opportunity to be like, wait a minute, I actually have the power to make the situation better. But it starts with, first, hey, I need to change how I feel about it entirely so that I can approach the situation with a clearer heart, a clearer mind. You know what I'm saying? Real talk. You know what I'm saying? You're doing a good job of focusing. Thank you. Appreciate you. Yes, man, I'm telling you, like, I love these kind of experiences, because like this, you know, this being the first year I'm going live, I'm seeing how, you know, it's like a next step with things, you know what I'm saying? With stuff like that. And all that. So when it comes to this moon in Virgo, let's see what else we need to address. So we talked about the square, talked about the opposition. Moon is also opposite Neptune. So, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do too, like this is all in the same process of trying to ground ourselves and trying to make ourselves more more able to, you know, how do we get stable, you know, with all the emotional things that we have to deal with and our emotional states going up and down and fluctuating. How do we create stability in that environment? A lot of those things are what we need to be considering at the moment, and it's really a form of you sitting down and very much getting real with these things. I think that, you know, I was seeing something where I'm noticing like a pattern of everybody trying to sober themselves up in some area of their life, you know, chill out on certain habits, get certain things in more of a regulation. And it really is, everything that we're dealing with right now is really just a result of coming out of that age of Pisces space. You know, now that we're in the age of Aquarius, everybody does want to think clearly. Everybody wants to think more clearly and make a lot more sense, because we're starting to realize how deep we was lost in certain things that was feeling good based upon us being in that delusion, us being in whatever thing we was creating as a fantasy that kept us in that escape mode. But everybody's looking at reality and saying, and keep in mind, us going through this infrastructure change is such an open space to actually go in. It's an open space for us all to go in and adjust and make the reality as good as what the dream and imagination could be, or what the delusion, what we wanted the delusion to be. We're actually seeing that, wait a minute, you know, everything in the world right that we see is going to shit and it's low quality. Why can't I step in and create what I believe is quality and stabilize myself through that? People are kind of getting fed up on that end. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Karam Batos, if I'm saying that correctly. You know what I'm saying? You said, can you explain retrograde planet? So a retrograde planet, right, is really just, retrogrades play out as past experiences being presented in the present, and we have a choice to do something different in order to get a different result. So if what you've been doing in the past wasn't actually working for you, let me see what you said, because you said Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio, right? So Jupiter is experiences. Scorpio deals with deep emotions. So in your life, right, if that's in your natal chart, you go through a lot of experiences that repeat themselves based upon an emotion or feeling you were stuck in. And the whole point is for you to learn what you need to transform on an emotional level in order to change the result you keep getting. So if you keep getting a bad result, but you keep it manifesting in your experiences, is keep being negative in a certain area, and depending on what house you have that in, that's going to determine kind of where that be mainly happening in. You got to take what you learned from the past, new wisdom and knowledge on how to change your emotional state and transform it in order to have a better experience the next time. It's kind of like a very heavy know better to do better energy, but you got to keep on making sure you're doing better, and you're going to keep going through heavy emotional transformative experiences until you learn from the past transformation on what to change and what to do differently. You said, shout out to Jade. You know what I'm saying? It's a perfect way to put it. Thank you. Good knowledge. Appreciate you. Yeah. Trying to keep, you know what I'm saying? Trying to keep the knowledge as clean as possible so we can all grow. So, but yeah. So in a nutshell, Moon and Virgo, that's the thing. Like, this is, I keep on saying it, but I just can't stress it enough how much of a benefit it is to have to have this particular moon at this point in time, because, you know, like I said before, the last two transits, you said I fucking woke up frustrated. I feel you. You know, I feel you. But see, a lot of that frustration, a lot of what we feel at the moment, that's what I was saying, like about what we're experiencing at this point in time. We're finally in a space that Virgo is like, you know, Virgo don't play. So the moon in Virgo really is a strong tool that we can use at the moment just to say, I am fucking sick and tired of doing the same bullshit, of being in the same pattern. Virgo gonna get it together. Virgo gonna start to say, well, let's look at this practical thing. This ain't working. That ain't working. That ain't working. That ain't working. And it's like, if you point this internally to these different things that you are still perpetuating, then you start to, you know, you put yourself on the right track to start to adjust these things, right? And as you start to pay attention to, oh, this ain't working in my life. And specifically when it comes to our emotional state and what we cling to create escapism, to avoid responsibilities. You know, Virgo is all about that accountability energy. So it's like, boom, we can start to be accountable more about our emotional state. Because see, the thing about Cancer, and why I even think Cancers need a Virgo friend around, is because a Cancer on a lower octave will start to point fingers at why everything else is making them feel away. And instead of assessing and addressing what's going on inside, it'll push off the reactive energy instead of actually fixing anything, right? So it keeps perpetuating the same cycle of toxicity. A Virgo will step in and be like, well, you know, you the problem too, and this is where you the problem. And again, Cancer might not like that, but when those two energies interact with each other, Cancer starts to realize, like, oh damn, oh, you right, I do need some more reflection to do. You know what I'm saying? I need some more reflection to get things going. You know what I'm saying? So you know, that's the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like this Virgo energy can help us just kind of get back in to that one point. You said when Moon meets Mercury, they give emotional support. Right, exactly. Emotional support that can actually make sense. You know what I'm saying? He said, facts, my only relationships with was a Virgo. Real talk. Shout out to Saint Uno in his mug. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and check out his latest album, Music. You know what I'm saying? Got to bump that shit for sure. He said, look all equal. Okay. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. Like, and that's my point right there. Like, that's, you know, Free, shout out to Free. You know what I'm saying? She hit it right on the head when she said the Moon and Mercury energies. This is like, that's a powerful combination for healthy self-reflection. And with that self-reflection, actually getting to a point where you see where the toxicity is, or you see where the pattern is, you see where the emotional disconnect is, and you able to now kind of put the pieces together and say, oh, that's specifically what needs to change. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Virgos are so good at. Virgos are able to get into the nitty gritty details and be like, this is the exact point where everything went to shit. And with that realization, or with that clarity, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can put two and two together, and now we on the step to change. You know what I'm saying? Like I said before, or I don't think I said it before, but you know, this is an ongoing process. This is what we're trying to adjust ourselves and position ourselves of, because remember, we in a waxing period, so we're heading to, we're going in the direction of wanting to be satisfied when it comes to Capricorn energy, stability. Not only Capricorn energies of being, you know, in a good status, with ourselves and others, but also being in a good standing when it comes to the way we associating, and the way we're able to communicate, and the it could be how you associate with yourself, and the way we associate with ourselves, and the way we associate with others. The better we have an association with ourselves, or we know how to relate to ourselves, the better we'll be able to relate to others in a sense. So it's like, boom, if we so it's a journey, right? And this part of the journey is making that first step to change, making that first step to saying, oh, this is what needs to be fixed, this is what's not working. You know what I'm saying? Just being honest about what's not working internally. And that's the main core of it. You said the moon is where my Mercury and Mars conjunction are in. He said I might have to hit you for a reading. Please do. You know what I'm saying? Just hit me up on 717conference.info@gmail.com. Yeah, that's a powerful little stellium you got. So yeah, so that's what this energy is, and why it's so kind of pivotal. And remember, like, I like to chop the moon cycles into fours. So this, we've been going through the spring part of the moon cycle, which is about kind of being wrong, about getting out there and just kind of doing different things to see the reaction, and paying attention to, like, wait a minute, is this the pattern? No, is this the pattern? But expressing and actively putting thoughts and feelings into, fulfilling that cup in order to see the result of it. When we get to that square part, which is going to be the moon in Libra, right? That square part, that's going to be where we can make changes, right? And it's the same thing, making decisions that's going to change the trajectory of our travel during this waxing period, so that we can get to a satisfied space. And again, that Libra energy is going to be about us relating to ourselves better and having a better internal balance. And that internal balance is going to help going to help us actually manage, these different emotional waves, so that when we get to Leo, we'll have a much clearer and more powerful way. It's like we'll be more in sync with ourselves. We'll be more in touch with ourselves and balanced. So the way we express ourselves come Leo season will be more honest. And y'all already know, like we was just talking about ego. A healthy ego is when what you're expressing is in alignment with who you really are inside. So when those two things are congruent, you get the best results in life. That's when you speaking from your heart. People receive what you're saying, and people, again, being that you are or you're being what you want to see, instead of wanting to see what you want others to believe you as. If you being what you want to see, you're gonna attract those who confirm that, and those who connect with that, and those who make that make sense within context. AKA, oh yeah, we feel you, bro. We see what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. I see it that way too, or I might see it differently, but I'm adding on to what you see, or whatever that looks like. Versus an unhealthy ego, which is you lying to yourself. So internally, you don't know who you are, or you're trying to run from something, and you rather be seen as something else. So what you put out ain't consistent what's going on inside. So you're going to attract things that look at you sideways, things that want to challenge you, things that want to be like, wait a minute, because internally you're in resistant mode. You're not really behind closed doors. You're not really who you say you are. So that inconsistency in and of itself is what creates more toxic energy, because now, instead of being honest and being able to be in that vulnerable space, you're always going to be looking for something to point the finger at somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And all that pointing at a certain point, again, no pointing at yourself is no real reflection, no real growth. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah, real talk. So and we can already see what this energy can do too. This energy can make you highly critical of others, and that was my point before too with this moon in Virgo. It's like we have to make sure we don't take that anxiety that we feel and use the Cancer energy to pin it on everybody outside of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Because as we take that anxiety and we start to make it a point to point at others, at what others aren't doing right, that's affecting our emotions, that's not us taking accountability for how we really feel. That's not us actually doing what we need to do in order to make the best experience for our own life and make it make sense for us. You know what I'm saying? This is energy we really need to take the time to go within and say, wait, I'm the reason I don't feel like this. I'm the reason why I'm not in that space. You know what I'm saying? for the most part. But I got to get my ass to work. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably already going to be walking in late. But I appreciate you for this. I'm probably going to go live again just to kind of, you know, clear out some points, because I know for sure I ain't hit everything. I tried to, but I do not have that, you know what I'm saying? He said, shout out to Jackie New. So he said, don't judge people you don't know. Right, exactly. Have a good day. Yeah, y'all too. Y'all have a great day. Keep using the energy. Like I said, I think we need to go back. So I might go back at the end of my shift, and we could just reiterate some points and smooth everything out just to make sure we hit everything. But that's the gist of it. You know what I'm saying? Using this energy to go within you and start to adjust these different things so we can start to, again, take those steps towards change. You know what I'm saying? Make those steps towards adjustments and get to a better space altogether so we can balance. You know what I'm saying? Much love. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.